back to another episode of Let's Talk Matcha, where we dive into the bittersweet moments of the teenage experience, just like matcha. Both may be messy and bitter, but that's what makes them beautiful in the end. And with that, I have a super special guest with me here today. She is from Texas. Let's welcome Sanvi.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. And thank you, Sophia, for the opportunity to be on Let's Talk Matcha.
Yes, and I see you're wearing your college shirt right now. Oh
Yes.
my gosh, repping. Okay, so in this episode, I wanted to kind of make it themed around how youth are using social media to fight climate change, because I know that you have an organization called Shade Seekers, sorry. So can you tell me more about that?
Shade Seekers is a nonprofit that me and my friend Latika started in sophomore year of high school. And in those past 2 years, we're coming up on our third year soon. We have made it our goal to kind of increase access to environmental education in underfunded school districts in our local area in Dallas, Texas. And yeah, I'm super excited to be sharing more about Shade Seekers here and kind of diving into that a little more.
Yeah, so what was the moment where you guys like finally realized like, oh, we should start something around schools that are under resourced in climate change?
We founded Shade Seekers in 2024. So this was my sophomore year, and I was like 16 at the time. And this was honestly just a result of a conversation me and a friend had. We were just at the library and we were talking about what we had learned at our like latest environmental club meeting, and we wanted to kind of make this movement of talking about the environment something that's talked about at all school districts, because I feel like our school is lucky enough to have a club where we have meetings, but I realized a lot of other schools don't have that. So we wanted to kind of increase access to environmental education, and that was our goal with Shade Seekers.
Yeah, oh my gosh. And I think that's so important that you notice that other schools didn't have the same opportunities that your school had. But because of that, did you ever have this sort of sense of pressure to do everything right with your organization?
Yeah, I think that that was definitely a part of the process. I mean, I'm a perfectionist, so I think that I had to learn early on that getting something done is better than getting it done perfectly,
Right.
especially when the cause is something like environmental education. And we just wanted to make an impact, and that came with being flexible and kind of overcoming roadblocks. And that kind of meant delivering like a final product that wasn't perfect per se, but it was good enough to help people and create an impact. So, like an example of that was when we were like hosting a fundraiser. We had our like venue location cancel last minute. I think it was around like 2 weeks before the fundraiser. So we had to secure a venue last minute. But thankfully, we were able to get another venue. But that just kind of goes to show like everything's not going to go exactly how you want it, but it's like part of the process.
Right. Yeah. And what are some of the other activities that you do like within Shade Seekers?
So, one of our like main projects was our book drives. So we recently hit our goal of getting over like 1,000 books donated to school districts in our area, and that was super exciting. So we were partnered with different clubs and organizations at our high school and in the local Dallas area to collect books. And then we donated these to Dallas ISD mainly so that we could help like underfunded school districts have access to environmental education. So these books were mainly about the environment, and kind of these were different like genres as well, like fiction, nonfiction. We just wanted to increase access to this education so that everyone could learn about it, not just schools with more funding.
Yeah. And back to what you were saying earlier, I love how you talked about hitting those roadblocks around along the way, but that's all part of the process. And I know I absolutely love what you post on LinkedIn because I feel like you're so transparent with everything that you do. So I want to talk about that because I think it's so interesting that you actually were pretty successful on LinkedIn rather than Instagram or TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. I think that LinkedIn is like a great platform to do outreach and reach people that could help you further your progress and your impact.
Mhm.
And I think it's also a platform that a lot of people don't use, especially my age. But it's such a great platform because a lot of people in general don't post on it. So when you go out of your comfort zone, you post, more people are going to see it simply because it's underutilized. So there's a lot more exposure that you're going to get simply by posting versus platforms like Instagram or TikTok, where so many people are posting nowadays, which is great. But I think it's also like it could cause you to get lost in the sea of content.
Right. Oh my gosh. And I love you're like a little mini LinkedIn influencer. It's so cool. Oh my gosh. What are some of your favorite types of posts that you make?
Favorite type of posts are just like carousel posts. So usually we'll make like multiple slides. I love to use Canva to make posts, and then I'll post that on actually both on Instagram and LinkedIn. And it's great to see like the different like engagement that we get.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes like LinkedIn gets more engagement, sometimes Instagram gets more engagement, but it's cool to see how like different platforms receive the same content.
Yeah, it's so cool to see like the different algorithms. I've actually been recently want I've been wanting to start posting more on TikTok because before when I'd only post like my reels that I posted that did well on Instagram and I'd post them on TikTok, they wouldn't do that well on TikTok. But I really want to start doing those like carousel dumps where you post like little bits and pieces of advice from each episode. Like I think that'd be super cool. I definitely want to start getting more into social media that I now have the flow of being in podcasting. But another question that I had for you was you're doing so much with LinkedIn, with your organization, with college apps, and now like going into college. How do you specifically deal with being overwhelmed?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And it's definitely something I've constantly been like thinking about, especially senior year, with college apps. But I would say like with the like whole nonprofit space, I would say it's very easy to feel overwhelmed by like the many deadlines that you have or events that you have coming up and interviews or meetings and things like that. But it helps for me to like kind of zoom out and remember why I started because when I like go back to 2 years ago and see like where we started when we first started drafting the plan for Shade Seekers up till now, seeing that progress has made me feel, kind of inspired, and it motivates me to keep going because I'm seeing how much progress we've made since then. I think it's easy to get caught up in like the moment and like see this one roadblock and think, oh my God, how am I gonna do this? But when you zoom out and you think, oh, I've done this time and time again with these other challenges, it really puts you into perspective, and it helps you kind of keep going. I think that's what's helped me a lot of times with Shade Seekers.
Oh my gosh, I love how you're talking about zooming out because I just finished my spring term of my epistemology class, which is basically a branch of psychology. And in it, we talked about just like being mindful and zooming out. And I feel like when you look at everything from 10,000 feet away, like visualize like you just standing away from all your thoughts 10,000 feet away, and you see, oh, I did this, and I did this. Like it just makes you feel so much better because you're not like lost in the weeds of everything, you know? And I always
Yeah.
talk about how having a podcast, I have these like tangible artifacts from when I first started as a freshman to now as an incoming junior. Like, isn't that so crazy? It's like as I'm growing up and changing, my podcast is also changing. And I'm sure that you can also relate as well as many other people who also have any type of organization or maybe even if you play a sport, you know?
It's so cool, I feel like, to kind of see how much progress you've made and how much you've grown in terms of like maybe your editing style or like for you specifically with Let's Talk Matcha. I bet like it's really cool to see like how much you've grown. And I kind of think that's the same way with Shade Seekers, like seeing how much we've grown, how much progress we've made.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, now since you're going to college, how do you plan to continue Shade Seekers in college? It could be whether through majoring in environmental science or maybe even just continuing your initiatives like in college.
That's like a great question. I've been like kind of reflecting on that, especially because I'm going to be entering college in the fall. And I would say like the main thing that I want to do is incorporate environmental aspects into what I'm studying. So I'm going to be an economics major, which like at first glance doesn't really seem like an environmental major per se, but I think that there are a lot of classes at UT Austin that offer like an environmental lens of business. For example, there's like a class that I'm going to be taking in the fall called, I think it's like business environmental ethics. So that's kind of like a lens at, the ethics behind business from like environmentally. So I think that's super cool. And I want to kind of keep that going in college. I also want to continue Shade Seekers in college. I want to create chapters at different high schools and scale Shade Seekers, as well as other colleges, hopefully. So that's like another goal of mine.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh. And I love how you're able to do two things that you think relate to each other. Like you said, kind of on at the first glance, economics, people are like, oh, how does that even relate to environmentalism? But then when you talked about how you're having those certain classes that tie your two passions together, that's really the most important part because you can find two things that you really love and connect them. And I think that's gonna be able to take you and your organization so far. And just think about like how what you learn from economics that can relate to shade seekers and maybe even starting like a business within your organization, you know?
Thank you so much. And I definitely agree, like finding that like intersection between things that you like is super important. I feel like when you're studying something, but also just in life, like it's nice to find like things that you enjoy and then do them both. Like you don't have to choose one.
Right. I feel like I relate to that so much because I feel like everything I do, when I was kind of like lost in the weeds of everything, I was like, wait, does anything I do really connect to each other? But then, like you were saying, when I zoomed out, I was like, oh, I was able to connect the dots between, oh, yeah, like student council, and then the podcast, and then city council. Like, all of it is about like youth mentorship and connection. But honestly, like, you really don't see that until you get out of yourself. Because when you like psych yourself out, and when you're constantly like letting those negative thoughts take over, what you're really doing and the good that you're doing in that then you could truly see like, oh, everything that I'm doing really matters and it's having an impact because it all connects to each other, you know?
Yeah, I feel like everything is like connected in like some shape or way.
I know it was probably so cool, especially for you, like going into college and maybe even like reflecting through your LinkedIn posts, like seeing how, like visibly seeing how everything just connects. And I feel like that's the beauty in it, like when you see that everything you're doing truly has a purpose.
I totally agree. And like as you were talking about before with like what you're doing in high school right now, like with student council and this, I think like it's so important to just like find like that thing that you love and then just keep doing it over and over. So like I love that you're like pursuing your passions and like going all in.
Thank you so much. And then would you say that especially with posting on LinkedIn, sorry, you have to be super out there. Do you think that you've become more confident now than when you started posting?
Oh yeah, I would definitely say so. I think that like when you kind of like almost force yourself to like post at the beginning, it kind of pushes you outside of your comfort zone. And for me, like especially, I wasn't like entirely comfortable with posting online on
Yeah.
LinkedIn or Instagram or anything like that. But with practice and repetition, I got more comfortable with it. And I think that's, again, part of the process. You're not going to be like ready for like, I feel like most things in life. But when you kind of just like make yourself do it and like almost like force yourself to do it and keep doing it over and over, you're going to get better over time.
Yeah, and like what I mean, if people don't know like what you post on LinkedIn, how would you describe to them like what you post and also what's your like thought process behind the specific ideas that you bring to the table?
Yeah, so I would say like my LinkedIn content is like a mix of Shade Seekers, which is more like the nonprofit side of things, but I also just post like updates on my career and things like that. Like recently, I got to visit the like Dallas Microsoft office, so that was super cool, and I just posted about that, but just different like events or updates in my life. I just post on LinkedIn. I know some people might call it like like being a linked influencer or something like that. I don't know if that's the case, but I think I just like posting updates in my life and just sharing that on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I feel like the only scary thing about that is when I first got onto LinkedIn, I feel like I just started comparing myself to so many people because I saw these kids who were like 15, 16, and 17. They're already like raising millions of dollars and going to like meet the president. And I was like, wait, like I'm not doing that. Like, does that mean that I'm not like succeeding and thriving? So how would you say that you dealt with comparing yourself to other people on LinkedIn and how can you alleviate those pressures?
I will say like LinkedIn is very like it can become almost like toxic because it's so like everyone's posting their achievements and I think it becomes almost like an echo chamber because no one's like willing to admit like their failures or things that like maybe they weren't able to achieve. And I think that when you see people like again like very young who are achieving these insane things, it's easy to compare yourself and be like, hey, am I like a failure or something? But I think like again, it goes down to like zooming out and thinking about how like you're on your own journey because everyone's just like on their own journey and comparing yourself to someone else is not going to benefit you or them. I think I kind of frame my mindset to kind of instead of comparing myself to others, I'll see someone else's success as proof that if they can do it, then I can too. And just like being motivated by other people's success. I think it's like easy to get caught in like that comparison like loop, but kind of breaking out of that allows you to view other people's success as motivation instead of like I guess like a hindrance to your progress.
Yeah, wait, that's such a good idea. Like reframing your thinking. I always think of it as like admiring versus feelings of jealousy because I think sometimes those feelings can seem interchangeable because it's like, oh, why am I not doing something like them? Or you could phrase it as, oh my gosh, that person is doing so much. I want to do that too, you know? Like it's all about the specific like mindset that you have going into things. And also what I love about your profile is that you just post real human things. Like I what made me attracted to your profile was that you literally posted about like making matcha and how that related to like your daily life and things like that. And I just think that things like that, like seeing that these people who accomplish amazing things are also just truly human and doing simple things as like making matcha every day, like I just think that makes teenagers especially feel so much more seen and understood.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because I think that with like a platform like LinkedIn, it's easy to like kind of view everything as super professional. And I feel like now it's kind of shifting to more of like a casual platform. Like people are being authentic and being like people again, which is nice because then you are like instead of viewing these people as like I don't know, it's you can view everyone as like just focused on their career and stuff, but you see like the personality behind them now, and that's
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, something that I've started realizing throughout the podcast is that like talking to so many students who are building initiatives and even adults, like we oftentimes we tie ourselves to what we're doing. And it's like, oh, if you're not the founder of Shade Seekers or you're not the founder of Let's Talk Matcha, then who even are you? You know? But then I realized like we are so much more than that. And I feel like even before I used to tie myself to the things I was doing, and I know that like it's so much easier said than done to not tie yourself to your accomplishments. But at the end of the day, like like we were talking about, when you really zoom out, or even like when you see that LinkedIn post about someone posting about something real, like you really understand that you are more than what you're doing. Like I love this whole idea of having like a holistic approach to everything that you do in your life. And I just think that having that really overall makes you have healthy productivity rather than toxic productivity.
Wait, I love that. I love that you said like we're like seeing the people behind like the people, like I love that we're like not associating our achievements with our self-worth because I think it's easy to do that. Especially with like LinkedIn and things like that. I think it's easy to kind of tie your self-worth to your achievements, but when you like separate that, you realize that like we're all just people at the end of the day and sure, some of us may have achieved like crazy things. That doesn't mean that any of us are like worth less or like a failure because we haven't done that.
Exactly. And I just think that it's so hard to like understand that mentality. Like coming into making the podcast, I didn't think this way. And I think that just goes to show that when you start these initiatives or when you just go out of your comfort zone, you learn so much about yourself and you have this like personal growth that translates into all the work that you do. Like I think at first I had an idea of the podcast and I had an idea of what I wanted to do and I executed on it. But like you were saying, I didn't have everything perfect either and I didn't know everything that I wanted to do with the podcast. And I just think that as time went on, I slowly started to be able to connect those dots and be like, "Oh, this is why I started that. This is my mission." Like my mission became more developed as time went on, and I'm sure that you relate to that too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And also, how were you able to like statistically, how are you able to see the growth with LinkedIn in terms of like what type of content you posted, how many times you posted a day, like what's the algorithm like for LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think that lately I haven't been posting as much as I had in the past, but when I was posting very frequently, I would say that posting like um, at most once per day was like a good practice. I wouldn't post like more than once a day just because I feel like your engagement and your impressions are like significantly reduced when you do that. Um, and like I've done that a couple times where I would post like multiple times a day, and I just saw that like my second post wouldn't do as well. So that's just like my piece of advice. But I would say like just like with Instagram or TikTok or any like social media platform, the first like 3 seconds is when you want to catch people's attention. And with LinkedIn, because it's more of like a text based platform, it's not a place where you really post videos. I know now they have like a video tab, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But with like text based posts, I would say like the biggest hitter is like the image that you use or the images you use, and then also the hook that you use. So I loved like experimenting with like hooks and things like that. I will say like I usually write that like first line at the end because sometimes it's hard to come up with like your hook off the bat. So I'll just write like what I want to, I'll just yap and then I'll like trim it down and then I'll write the hook at the very end.
Wait, that I like relate to that so much, especially with like writing essays. I probably sound like a nerd saying that right now, but literally like
No, you're
I
good.
when I write anything, like sometimes it's so hard to come up with the most captivating part. Like I don't know what it is, but it's like I actually just read this like I think it was a college essay recently, and they were talking about how their greatest superpower was creating hooks because creating hooks is literally just understanding your audience and understanding what they want to see and hear. It's not just about what you want to tell them, but understanding it from the other hand of whatever you're trying to argue, you know? And I just think that's so interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool. Um I think it takes time too because when I was first like making posts on LinkedIn, I did not know how to write a hook. I didn't even know what a hook was. So I was like when I saw other people posting about what a good LinkedIn post has and like a hook and I was like what is a hook? But you learn as you go and I think that's just part of the process. So like if anyone's like watching and they want to like start posting on LinkedIn, I would say just don't like stress about making it perfect. Once again, like you're gonna learn over time, but just like start and then you'll figure it out along the way.
That's such a good piece of advice. I love how you brought up that you learn as you go. Like that is so important. And even me, like I don't realize that half the time that I'm doing things. Like I just like, for example, if I'm doing like my math homework, and if I don't understand the first problem of that homework set, I will like crash out. I'll be like, oh my God, like what am I even doing? I can't even understand the first problem. But then you know what? You have to realize like it's a learning process, and for some people, you have to master the whole set of problems before you actually understand the content, and that's okay too. Um, but yeah, it's really interesting to see like the amount of growth that individuals have when you kind of like encounter things like this.
For sure. I think that's like the three main components of like any good LinkedIn post would be the hook that we talked about before, and then the body of the post, which would be, your main content, and then finally the call to action. I would say the hook and the call to action are like the heavy hitters. The hook is what catches people's attention, and then that's like usually 1 or 2 lines, so really short, but like that's the point so that people can like instantly read it and they're either are surprised or they want to learn more. So it kind of evokes like some kind of emotion or response that makes people click like more and want to read more. And then your content, that's kind of self explanatory. It's what you want to talk about. And then you have your call to action, which is either like a question or like something that you want your audience to do. Maybe comment something, maybe tag someone, maybe answer a question, stuff like that. So I think that that kind of encourages engagements, but it can also encourage like discussion. Like if you ask a question, people are going to give their opinion about something. And of course, you have like an image or some kind of like graphic. And I think having like some kind of graphic definitely helps because it like immediately catches your eye as well when you're like scrolling on like, a website or something like that. Having an image catches your attention. But yeah.
Yeah. And then just to kind of touch up on what you're talking about earlier, oh my gosh, it's so hard to like keep my questions in my head because as like my guest keeps talking, I'm like, uh-oh, like I just lost the question, but I thought of it. So, the question that I had for you, or not the question, but I want to relate to you in a sense that you were talking about how like you posted more on LinkedIn before, but now you're not posting as much. And I feel like I'm the same way with the podcast because before on Instagram, I used to post reels like 3 times a week and I'd be super, super consistent about it. But then I don't know, like as I got busier, well, not, I don't want to say as I got busier, but I guess like as I became more experienced with the podcast, I just like I didn't feel the need to post as much because it's like, oh, if I post like a trailer reel, then I post like maybe one thing that the guest says, then maybe like that's enough. But then like I want to find ways to like spice up what I post because recently I feel like my episodes haven't been, I don't want to put it as not performing as well, but I feel like just like when I first started the podcast, they were doing better because I think people were just less used to it. So like, oh, like let me go watch what this is about. But now that more people are used to it, I want to find out ways that I could scale to people outside of like my quote unquote immediate bubble. It's been so hard for me to not be like, oh, like you're failing because you're not performing as well statistically. But it's like, no, because I still have people DMing me like, oh, I love the episode you watched, even that you made, sorry. Even if there's not as much views, if that makes sense. So I was wondering, like, how do you deal with those types of feelings?
I think that's a good question for sure. And I think that's like kind of relatable too, because I feel like when you like first start something, it's easy to like keep that momentum going. But then once you like, it kind of like stops, it's kind of hard to like either start it up again or like get back to that like, I want to say like for lack of a better word, like peak you were at. So like
Yeah,
it's,
oh my gosh.
you know
Oh,
what I mean? Yeah. So I feel like to get back to that, with like LinkedIn as an example, I would say that when I first was like, actually, even before I started posting, I would just comment on people's posts because your comments are like mini posts because your comments can get like impressions. So that kind of just like increases your exposure without having to like have the like pressure, having to like make an entire post itself. So just by commenting your one, like engaging with other people's posts, which is obviously really good, but also just like you're letting go of that pressure to like make it self like or a whole like dedicated post and reach like some like schedule with it. So I feel like I want to like get back into first commenting on people's posts and just keeping that going before I start posting again. And I think that also applies to like TikTok and Instagram too, because when people like your comments, or even if they like a video, they're going to see your comment a lot of the times. So that like increases your, I guess, views or like how much exposure you get. So I would say that's like a good way to kind of get the ball rolling. And then also don't like put too much stress on being like consistent when you're first starting out. I think that like consistency is good, but if you're like just starting, like trying to post like multiple times a week or like every single day is really hard if you're starting from ground zero or like if you're starting back up too. So I would say like start with like a really easy goal, like there's this book that I like started reading, like Atomic Habits, very like cliche, but I would say like an easy way to like start a habit again is to like make a smaller habit that you can do in like 2 or 3 minutes. So instead of making your goal like post every single day, make it like leave a comment every single day. That's like a lot easier to do because you just have to like reply to someone's post. You don't have to make a whole full-fledged post. And I think having like an easier goal that you can achieve first is going to help you achieve bigger goals.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's like the SMART goals where you make like a reachable first and then you think whether it's like measurable and like how much time you have. And I just think that's such a good way to put it. But before we end, I just want to be like completely transparent with this. And I know since we're talking about social media and all of that, um, but I feel like when you're posting on social media and when you're putting yourself out there, and sometimes when things don't perform as well as you would like it to, it's back to the idea where you tie yourself to what you're doing. And it's like so hard for me to see like if an episode isn't doing as well, it's like, oh no, like what did I do wrong? But then like and I know people are always like, oh, like what how many views do you get? How many subscribers do you have? But I just choose to not look at that because I'm like I'm gonna post it. Whoever wants to see it can see it. And maybe if an episode doesn't do as well as I'd like it to, it doesn't matter. Like out of sight, out of mind. And that's how I'm trying to go about it. But like as long as I like what I'm doing and as long as there's at least one person who's impacted by what I'm doing and what I'm producing, then that's all that matters to me. Like I could honestly care less about the amount of views or the monetization, which I don't even do by the way, but any of that type of artificial stuff. Like I don't know, I just don't really care as much anymore about it.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people who want to like get into social media or like similar path get caught up in like the whole like idea of getting famous or like getting this many subscribers or this many views and things like that. And while that's a great goal to have, I think it's like you said, like it's important to kind of separate yourself from like that number because at the end of the day, like that number is just a number. It's like it has nothing to do with you. And the reason why you started, like for the most part, should be, and I feel like is because you're passionate about it. And like with Let's Talk Matcha, like I feel like I can tell you're passionate about it. So like that's the
Thank
reason why
you.
you're doing this. And like I would say with Shade Seekers too, like we started this because we cared about it, not because like we wanted to get this many followers or da 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 da. Because that's like the important part, right? You're going to want to keep going with it because you care about it, not because you want like a million followers or things like that, and like money and like all that, which is definitely like can happen with social media, but that's not the reason people do it. You know what I mean?
And I think that the problem, or I guess not the problem, but the reason why people are reducing themselves just to numbers on social media is because we care. We just care so much about what we're doing, and because of that, we start to notice the little things like the amount of views we get. But when you just like break away from that whole idea of quote unquote like getting 1,000 views or 1,000 subscribers, it's like it really doesn't matter. And honestly, to me, being consistent is more important than getting like a crazy amount of views. And as long as I like show up for people the way that I want people to show up for me, then that's like all that matters. So,
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love that mindset because like I feel like again, it's like I see like how many like this number and I it's easy to be like, "Oh my God, why am I not at this number instead?" But when you like again zoom out and you just like look at why you started in the first place, that matters so much more than like any number of followers you could get.
right. And since we only have 3 minutes left, I'd like to wrap up and say thank you so much for joining me virtually here today. And I feel like we covered so much. I feel like I've never really done like a social media specific episode. So this is really interesting to talk about. And I feel like I learned a lot from you along the way. So thank you so, so much.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much as well. Thank you for like the honor of being here. And I'm glad that I got to be on this podcast of yours. And I'm glad that we kind of met through Raquel too. I think that
Yes.
like kind of led to this, which is I'm really happy about. So yeah, I'm glad to be here. And I love talking to you about like LinkedIn and social media and all these amazing things.
Yes, oh my gosh, shout out Raquel. Well, I didn't forget about that, but I didn't explicitly mention that. Oh my gosh, she's gonna be so happy when she sees this.
Yes, we love Raquel.
Yes, we love you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye.